Cool. Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to talk about AI and, obviously, huge topic. The title of this is It's Not Just Hype Anymore. I want to point out that this presentation is an adaptation of a presentation from October of 2023 that was called Is AI Hype or Is It Real? So you can gather from the change in the title that we've answered that question. It's not just hype anymore. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's changed, but we'll also go back to what the basics of AI. So let's get started on. Oh, by the way, if anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat window. Daryl, do you have the handout?
Yeah, I'll post the handout in the chat. The handout was also linked in the email I sent out yesterday. So there's a link to
Oh,
downloading that, but I'll put it in the chat window.
cool. Thank you. Uh, if anybody has any questions, though, you can virtually raise your hand uh, with Zoom. I'm not, I don't have the gallery view, so Daryl will see that. Or you can chat it, or you can just unmute and fire away. So either way. First of all, a little introduction. I think most of you know me. Bobski is my nickname. In real life, I was a high-tech marketing guy for a bunch of different, mostly startup companies doing hardware, software, storage, that kind of thing. Actually was an applications programmer for a while in COBOL and Fortran. So that might tell you, and punch cards, and that might tell you something. Um, I'm a Mac guy at heart. If I must, I can boot Windows, but I'd rather not. And I grew up with computers, and this is an interesting story. I'll try to keep it short. In the mid 1960s, in a very small town in south central Wyoming, somehow my high school ended up with a brand spanking new IBM 1620, which had 8K of memory. It was amazing. A teletypewriter as the input output and punch cards. And I just fell in love with the computer. I thought that was just the coolest thing. So I'm of this senior generation, but I grew up with computers. I always like to introduce this and say, is this for me? And if you want to know more about how AI works, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Uh, how does AI impact your life? You want to learn about how AI can help you day to day, or you just like new stuff, right? And you can see, I think we were talking before the session on doing some image generation. I asked Microsoft Copilot to create an image for me that said, show me someone that's curious about AI and how it may impact your life. And this is kind of what it cooked up, which is pretty cool. Um, so let's look at the agenda here. And as usual, I break this into several chunks. The first chunk is generally what I call the not particularly useful but mildly entertaining section. Things like kind of how does it work and the backdrop of all this and that sort of thing. The second session is a little more practical, the informative, hopefully useful section. That's the part we'll do the quiz on at the end. So pay attention during that part. You can start thinking of some questions we might ask an AI chatbot if you're not familiar with those guys. Just think of something from, quantum physics to macaroni recipes, or think of some images we can create, and we can do that if we have time. We can fiddle with that afterwards. So, first of all, what is AI and how does it work? I thought this was kind of cool. I asked Night Cafe Studio, which is an image slash animation generator, to create an animation for me of an AI robot pointing its finger to the right with no background. So this is unique. This is unique to me. It created it for me, and you can see it's got this little animation that it does. I thought that was pretty cool. So that's the section introduction. So, what is artificial intelligence? Well, of course, the first thing you do is you ask ChatGPT, which is a chatbot, what is artificial intelligence? And you can see here in 2025, it's field of computer science, blah, blah, blah. The interesting part is performing tasks that normally require human intelligence. And that's really the key here. And that's what's different about AI and computers in the previous 50 years or so. So that's pretty much what we're going to focus on is these tasks that require human intelligence, things like recognizing, understanding language and images. Um, it is worth noting that AI has been around for a long time and many decades, actually, if depending on your definition of AI. Um, if you all saw the movie about the Enigma cracking the Enigma code in the 1940s, that used some semi-AI techniques. So that was a long time ago. But this understanding language and images is really pretty new, and that's what we're going to talk about. So of course, is AI just hype? So I asked ChatGPT, and we're going to talk a lot more about ChatGPT. When I first did this presentation in the latter part of 2023, this was the answer I got. AI has significant real-world applications. Yeah, its capabilities often exaggerated, blah, blah, blah. And so I thought, well, we'll turn around and we will ask a chat GPT, is AI just hype again? And this is 2025. In fact, yesterday or the day before. AI is not hype. It is real transformative applications already deployed, blah, blah, blah. So you can see in 2 years, the description has really changed. And I think this is completely reasonable. It's a completely reasonable answer. It still has a little warning, expectations get inflated. And, that's human nature to do marketing. So beware. It's important to separate progress from exaggerated claims. So AI is based on neural networks, and neural networks mimic the human brain. We have bazillions, if I can use a technical term, of neurons inside our brain here, and the AI uses essentially computers to mimic the human brain. It does need training. That's one of the important things to note about AI is it has to be trained. And the AI that you end up with depends on how you train it. And ChatGPT, for example, they won't tell you anymore what they use to train ChatGPT, but it's different than, say, Claude or some of the other AIs. So you'll get slightly different answers from the different AIs. I always say the AI that's in my 6-year-old grandson's brain is right now, it's in the process of training. The thing to note here is that what brought all this about is semiconductor technology, which is the chips that appear in your phone or in your laptop or in you name it. That's semiconductor technology has made huge advancements in the last 10 years, uh, specifically in the area of neural networks. In fact, now they have, we used to have CPUs, we have for central processing units, GPUs, which are graphic processing units. We now have NPUs, which are neural network processing units. In fact, your phone um, has a 16 core, what they call neural engine, built into it, and it can execute 35 trillion operations per second. If any of you are programmers or were around back in the day, it wasn't that long ago that we measured computer performance in what we called KOPS, thousands of operations per second. This is a billion times faster than a KOP. So it's crazy what's going on in semiconductor technology. The computer science part of that is the notion of neural networks in essentially it's sophisticated matrix processing, computer science algorithms that do uh, matrix processing for neural networks have really expanded in the last 10 years. New ways of doing things that were unheard of in, even in the 2010s have come about. So let's look real quickly at natural language processing, which is a part of these chatbots. Of course, it's based on neural networks. It gives devices, let's say, not just computers, the ability to understand text and spoken words. ChatGPT uses what they call an LLM, a large language model version of natural language processing. And the way we kind of picture this was from the original ChatGPT, I think 3.0. They did tell you how they trained ChatGPT. They used a lot of public content, books, articles. They put in a bunch of academic journals, and they paid for some content. What's not shown here is they actually took the dialogue, they transcribed the dialogue of about 500 old movies from the 50s and 60s. And they use that transcription to help train the large language model how to speak. So it's kind of interesting that you got Clark Gable in there somewhere. Who knows? Um, and then there's a big portion of this, especially early on, is reinforced by humans. And the way that works, and if you use ChatGPT or any chatbot today, at the end of your response, it will say, is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down? And that feedback that you provide it helps form a feedback loop that improves its training as it's going on. I'm going to say this several times during the presentation, but the implication there is that whatever you just ask a chatbot and it asks you to give you an up or a down, the implication is that they captured that information and they kept it for themselves, and they do. So if you have dark secrets that you'd rather not have the universe know about, I recommend not querying a chatbot with those dark secrets, because that information becomes their property once you've done that. So use caution. So I like to do this because I'm an old-time programmer, right? And if you're not an old-time programmer, this might be a little bit boring. But in the old days, if I was writing a COBOL program and I wanted to write a program that should determine whether I should go skiing or not, if you don't know from the term bob ski, I'm the alpine skier. What we do is we would write a flow chart using this nice little template over here. And that would take these various decision points and develop a yes or no answer depending on the outcome of the input that you gave it. Is the weather bad? Do you have enough money? Is there enough snow? Can you get off work? And so on. So we'd actually write a program that had all these little decision boxes. And when you ran it, it would ask you these questions, and then it would produce this result. Well, the same way using a neural network and an AI is, should I go skiing? Well, let's assume for the moment that the chat bot or whatever AI we're asking actually has access to this information. It doesn't even have to ask you anymore. It knows the weather. Thankfully, it doesn't know my bank account yet, but someday it will. It knows traffic. It knows the snow, right? And based on the training that we gave this AI model prior to doing this query, it puts different weights during the training. Each of these neural network nodes, which are essentially neurons, they have different weights applied to them, and that's how neural networks make decisions. Is they cascade these weights and decisions through the neural network, and then it produces an answer, right, using a natural language processing model. So this is a hypothetical example because ChatGPT doesn't have access to my bank account yet, thankfully. But using natural language processing, it knows me. It snowed 11 and a half inches the last 24 hours. I know how much you like fresh snow based on the training. It knows that that's very important to me. And some of the other variables will be diminished if there's a bunch of fresh snow. You don't have enough money in your checking account for a lift ticket, but you do have a credit card. The traffic's going to be worse than usual. You do have vacation days and you don't have anything scheduled. Don't worry about friends because on powder days there are no friends, so have fun. So this is kind of an example that I cooked up of what an AI combined with a natural language processing model would do in comparison to that old flowchart that we had from years ago. So let's look at AI, and we're going to talk a lot more about chatbots here in a second, but let's look at AI and images because it turns out that one of the things that an AI is really good at that old style programs were horrible at is manipulating images. In other words, comparing different images, actually creating them, just like a human brain. The human brain is really great at image processing. And you can see here, I asked Microsoft Copilot Designer to give me an image. The algorithms that develop images are called convolutional neural networks, CNNs. But anyway, and it cooked up this image for me. I have somewhere around here, I've got four Aussies that you may hear off and on during our presentation. So I like Aussies. And this is what it cooked up. And I thought those are a pretty cool representation. Um, so images include photos, handwriting, typed documents, all kinds of things that that you would uh, that are basically images, right? And we're going to talk more about that. There's a lot of chats. Daryl, are those any of those questions? Uh,
Not yet, really.
okay, great. All right. Um, the first is image recognition. This is one of my little, she's a teacup Aussie named Indy. What happens is the is broken down into pixels, as you're probably aware. That's how images are stored on computers. It's run through a neural network, which has been trained millions of cycles of training on what's a dog and what's a cat and what's a bird. And it's able to say, hey, this is a dog. Now that sounds pretty easy to us and our human brains, but to computers, this used to be impossible. Computers just flat couldn't do this. So I like to use Google's reverse image search as a demonstration. So, and if you're not familiar with that, we can show it later on, but just go to google.com. It brings up the search box. Over on the right is a picture of a little camera, and it will do what you call a reverse image search. It will search the internet based on an image. So I fed Indy's image into Google reverse image search, and it popped up all of these images, which some of them are just straight away, I mean, look like Indy. Um, but there was a couple of points here that I was curious about. There's some Chihuahuas entered in here, and I was like, well, that's kind of strange. How did the reverse image search come up with Chihuahuas? Until we did her DNA. And guess what? She's 45% Chihuahua. So Google reverse image search was doing its job. In fact, it was doing its job quite well. For those of you that have iPhones, there's a thing called visual lookup. It does AI image recognition and it identifies lots of different things. If you're looking at food, for example, it can suggest related recipes. Um, or you can just take a frame of a video and have your phone look it up. And you can see here, if you do have an iPhone and you bring up a photo, if there's a little sparkle here on this information circle, that means that the phone has detected that it has information about that photograph. And you can see here, it's got a little sparkle. If I click on that, it says look up Australian Shepherd. So it knows that this is an Aussie. This is by Aussie named Miko, who's a full-size Aussie, which I think is pretty clever. And this is using neural NPUs that are built onto your phone. So it's doing it on the phone. Here's another example. I normally do these live, but I thought it'd be easier to just do these. So I took a picture of some tacos that I made the other night or a long time ago. Um, and sure enough, there's a sparkle. It says look up food because it knows it's food. And if you do click on this or tap on this, it shows you some recipes based on the photograph that you were originally fed it. I just think that's so clever. It's basically saying, okay, you got tacos here. Here's some other taco recipes. Another example is this is a photograph that I have on my phone. It's got the sparkle. I click on it. It says, oh, this is a landmark. You click on that and it says, hey, that photograph is, I recognize that as a landmark that is Times Square. So from just this photograph, it knows the location that the photograph was taken, which is crazy. Okay, so we can play around with image searches and image comparison later on if you want. AI is really great at generating images, and a little bit of semi-technical detail here. The way this does this, you probably have all heard that AI consumes a lot of power, and that's true. AI image generation is the worst at it, and but meaning it consumes more power than queries that you might be giving AI. The reason for that is the way it generates this image is it takes the language that you entered here or spoke into it or took a photo of, and it provides an AI image generator with basically a blank slate. And it says, this is Australian Shepherd puppies, and feeds it to another AI. And the other AI says, no, it's not, and it makes adjustments to it and sends it back and says, okay, this is Australian Shepherd puppies. And the first thousand or so iterations, it's not even close. And it keeps doing that. And that's why they call it a generative adversarial model. The two AIs are adversarial. They're querying each other to improve the quality of the image. And eventually it ends up with something like this. Now, you may have, if you've used Copilot or ChatGPT or Gemini to generate images, sometimes you'll notice that they're not very good, or they've got little faults in them. The reason that happens is that this generative adversarial model takes so much power that the vendors cut it off. They say, no, look, we're not going to sit here and iterate this to perfection over a billion iterations. You're just going to have to live with what you got. Now, there are people that own AIs or have unlimited access to AIs that can generate perfect images. But for us people that only pay ChatGPT $20 a month, we're not always going to get a perfect image, and that's because they cut it off at a certain point. Um, the it's just a byproduct of the amount of energy it takes to create an image. And Daryl was saying he got cut off by Copilot that said, "Hey, you've reached your limit of the number of images you can create." I think that's by day, but it probably varies by chatbot. And that's because it costs them a lot to do that. Well, relatively a lot. In fact, I saw or not a survey, a paper the other day on actually how much it costs to do a chat query, but I didn't include it in this. I'm going to have to do that. It's very interesting. Here's one I always like because I did this back in 2023. I used Microsoft Designer here. And one of my other jobs is I'm a genealogist. half of my father's side is from Scotland, my mother's side is from Germany. So I said, hey, let's create an image that reflects my German Scottish heritage. So I said, show me a man with lederhosen and a kilt, and it created this image. Now it threw the beer in, which is actually quite accurate. I don't play bagpipes, but it threw the Alps in. I assume this is the Alps here, and somebody else playing the bagpipes over there. So it took some liberties with what I asked it to create, based on knowledge of me, which is pretty interesting. We're probably going to talk more about Copilot later on. It is integrated with Microsoft Office 365, but it's an extra paid amount. Um, Come see me if you don't want to pay that amount. I figured out a way around it. There's a site called Night Cafe. I said create an Australian Shepherd puppy on a wagon. It took liberty to create two Australian Shepherd puppies with kids in the background. There's no kids in the background here, so it basically summarily ignored that. But it did do the lots of flowers part, so that's kind of cool. Um, so when I originally did this presentation again back in 2023, I said, show me Dean Martin on a horse with a beer and mountains in the background, and you can see that it created this image. There's the horse body is missing, basically. Dean Martin looks really like Dean Martin, but the horse is just all messed up. So I said, well, let's do this in 2025. And I can't remember which image creation I used here, but you can see that the image itself is just much more refined. So in 2 years, shoot, which I don't remember what I used. It may have been Copilot. You can see how the image creation has improved over just 2 years. The horse is the horse. Dean Martin is definitely Dean Martin. He has a different beer in his hand. But I thought it was interesting to show the contrast, in keeping with our theme of it's just not hype anymore. You can see. Since I'm a genealogist, I have several presentations on using AI for genealogy. This is one of the examples. This is my fourth great grandmother's will from Tennessee. We talked about how this works. You can see it was handwritten. It's turned into pixels, fed to a neural network. It's got lots of cycles of training on what handwriting looks like. In this particular case, ChatGPT. And it's able to transcribe this handwriting into the actual text in English using a large language model. I've got a better way of looking at this. So this right here is the actual writing. Hawkins County in the state of Tennessee. This is, it's readable, but man, it would take me a whole afternoon to go through this. Whereas you can see what ChatGPT did in a matter of seconds. So if you're a genealogist, you definitely got to start using AI in your genealogy. Here's some image creator generators. I do want to show one of these. Let's see if I wonder if I can copy this. I wanted to show this one because it's just boggles your mind. Hang on, let's open this link. Oh, I need to share Safari also. Okay, am I sharing Safari? No. There we go. All right, I hope you all can see this. So this is a Microsoft research project. And actually it's several years old, but it's just amazing. What they do is they take a wallet-sized snapshot, right? This is a snapshot, a single image of a person, feed it an audio clip, and it produces things like this.
In that place right now.
Can you hear that?
You want to turn your life around, and you know somewhere
Yes.
there could be some
Thank you.
decision you have to make. Like, like it's like something was decided for you, and instead of trying to make
Look at those facial expressions.
The
Again,
thing to look at is the letter H, so the sound at the beginning. It depends what country you're from, but many native languages have a problem with putting too much tightness in the throat, and it can become more.
If you plan to go for a run and you don't have enough time to do a full run, do part of a run. If you plan to go to the gym today.
Anyway, I thought that was just amazing. I think that's in the handout if you want to go take a look at it. Essentially, a snapshot takes a snapshot, and we're going to talk a little bit about what this means to things like scams, for example, or the 5 o'clock newscast. Is it real or is it AI? It's kind of hard to tell these days. So let's talk about chatbots. This is the name that we have for these tools that really simulate human conversations. And they use natural language processing and machine learning, and we talked about it's used for all kinds of things: answering questions, writing, summarizing, and web searches. Web searches is actually new from when I first did this in 2023. Shortly day after, of course, you had Google Gemini. A little bit after that, ChatGPT started doing a web search. I don't even use Google anymore to search for things on the internet. I use ChatGPT. We're going to talk about that. So again, show me a man interacting with a chatbot. This was from 2023. And look at these words on here, blah, blah. They're not even, and this gets down to the stopping the iteration of the creation of the image. You can see that these aren't even words. This was done, I don't know, a week ago or so ago with Microsoft Copilot, and you can see very specific words on the whiteboard here. So again, things have changed a lot in the last only 2 years. So let's talk a bit about ChatGPT. I can't really do a poll. I can't see the crowd. Well, maybe I can. How many of you have used ChatGPT? Just raise a hand. Yeah, I'd say maybe a third, something like that. Oh, yeah, Rosemary raised a virtual hand. Connie did. Cool. Cool. So you're familiar with ChatGPT. Oh, Daryl raised his hand too. It told me. It's an AI chatbot, all right? GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which is really technical, but I call them the coneheads that developed ChatGPT thought it would be cute to give us a term that's really hard to say 1,000 times a day, but nonetheless, we do it. Yes, ChatGPT can understand text, audio, images, video, and it can generate a response in any of those. They call it a multimodal chatbot, and it's multimodal because it can use any kind of input and output. That as well is fairly new. When ChatGPT first came out, it was limited to text. Basically, you had to type text. This comes straight from ChatGPT. It's trained on a broad range of human knowledge, blah, blah, blah. And the reason this comes from ChatGPT is I ask it, what were you trained on? Back in 2023, it gave me a specific answer, and including things like the dialogues of the movies and so on. They don't tell you that anymore. And one of the reasons you've probably heard this a little bit of controversy is that they may or may not use copyrighted information to train the GPT. and again, that gets into, just like the rest of this does, gets into some legal gray area that's just really hard to resolve. But it does use lots of information. And by the way, it also uses your chats, unless you tell it not to. You can actually go in and say, this is a private chat. Don't use the information to help train it. But if you go in and say you're a, I don't know, 3M Corporation, and you say, here's my all of my books, my accounting books or whatever, just know that the 3M accounting books might end up on the internet somewhere. So be careful about that. And I mentioned this new since 2023, ChatGPT will do web searches for you. I like to do a little demo here. Let's see if I can flip this like we did a moment ago. One of the demos I like is, okay, can you all see ChatGPT? Yeah. So I actually normally use the app that's on my Mac, but this is chatgpt.com. And I'm going to say, write a short poem in iambic pentameter about a cheerful audience listening to a lecture on an eye. Let's say, make it 2 verses. And it says, here's a short poem, blah, blah, blah. And I just think this is kind of hilarious. Bright faces glow beneath the speaker's light. Enthusiasm hums from every seat. I can see the enthusiasm through Zoom here. Circuits, codes, blah, blah. They laugh and nod. And then lately, all of the chatbots do this. They follow up with a question. How would you like me to follow this on? So let's make the audience grumpy. Now, notice that I don't have to query it or anything like that. It remembers the conversation. And this is more important when we get to doing web searches. So here's a grumpier take, still in iambic pentameter, thank you. The crowd sits slouched, their brows are deeply furrowed, impatient sighs drift. Luckily, I have not heard any impatient sighs, but maybe you're all muted, so who knows. A cough, a yawn, a mutter in the back. The lecture drones while tempers start to fray. So you can see it's very creative when it comes to things like that. Let's see. I always like how much, and what we're going to do is we're going to make this DNA question a web search here. We should be able to make it a web search. Maybe I can't. How much DNA? I do a lot of DNA presentations, so I thought this was interesting as well. You'll be happy to know about 75% of the genes, 60% of the genes in humans have a counterpart in fruit flies. In other words, 60% of us are in common with fruit flies. For whatever that's worth, and take that and run with it. So another one is always good is, how do I make nitroglycerin? We haven't really talked about the safety that these chatbots build into, but they do, and necessarily so. So I'm sure they would get sued if the wrong thing came out. But notice I can't help with instructions. It's dangerous and tightly regulated.
So are you on a watch list now, Botsky?
I probably am, because I've done this multiple times, right? Now, and this is new, is all of this follow on is some safe useful context about nitroglycerin. But notice that, how do I make nitroglycerin? And we're going to talk more about this as we go along here, but the AI in general, humans will be humans, and humans will find a way to use this in nefarious ways. So It's going to happen. There's no question about it. They're trying early on here to put some boundaries around what you can do with an AI, but given enough cash and enough NPUs and GPUs, you can create your own AI, and you can create an AI to do anything you want. So it's going to be interesting. So I mentioned the AI search chatbots, and this is really, I'll say, revolutionary. Those of you who are around when the internet was first invented and we had Alta Vista and Ask Jeeves and all of those internet searches, this is before Google came about. It was amazing. It was amazing to have be able to submit a query and have a search engine find you all the relevant information based on that query. Well, this is the next level. And not only does it summarize the information for you and put it into natural language, but it gives you this chat experience. In other words, and one of the examples that I use, I don't have it here, I don't think, is how many apples are sold each day. And if you feed that to Gemini, say, it will come back and it will give you in bushels an estimate of the number of apples that were sold in the United States, by the season, blah, blah, blah. Well, I can come back, and I have done this, and I say, no, I mean apples with a capital A. And the chatbot comes back and says, oh, you mean from Apple computers. And then it goes on to tell me all the iPhones that are sold. And that's part of the chat experience here. And this makes internet searches much more efficient. It's so much easier to sit and chat with when you're doing an internet search than it is to look through a long list of websites that Google gives you. Yeah, now Google gives you a Gemini summary up front straight away, but then it still gives you the long list of websites. But again, back in the old days, it was a long list of websites, and you had to sort through them and figure it out. A little note, all these chatbots will also provide you with footnotes or pointers to the pages where it found the information that it summarized for you. So you can still go double check the websites themselves if you are getting something that's questionable or you want to verify the information. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. So this is from one of my internet search presentations. Back in March of 2023, ChatGPT, when they first introduced internet search, showed up on this list of internet search engines. You can see Google's 80%. This is actually a video that it's a lot of fun to watch from the late 1990s, something like that. In less than 2 years, so what is this, 20 months, something like that, ChatGPT has risen in the ranks very quickly. And that's because people have they've discovered this notion of a chat for an internet search instead of just getting a list of websites. So, and if you haven't done this, this is from chatgpt.com. These comparisons. Gemini, I mentioned Google Gemini. This was some features that came out. I don't even know what all these features are. I often say when I'm doing this presentation, if I wanted this presentation to be up to date, I would have updated it in the parking lot before I came in, because AI is changing that fast. It's just crazy how fast. This is a big deal, agentic AI, and I don't want to go into a lot of detail to it because it's fairly new, but it's essentially AI that takes the next step, and that is you give it the goal and it figures out how to solve the problem, rather than you typing in a bunch of words for a prompt that describes how you want the answer to be formed and where to go look or what you're looking for. You can just say, hey, I need to buy a new computer. I want a Mac, and find the best deal for me. And that's the goal, is to find the best deal. And then we'll go out and search all that. We'll do comparisons and we'll compare features, and produce the answer. You're going to see a lot more about this. We as consumers aren't going to use this as much, but people that do things like uh, support, tech support, and that kind of thing are going to use agentic AI a lot. And the other thing is, if you've seen uh, Tesla's robots, the robots are going to start using this. So you can say to your robot, which I don't have here, but I should have, um, get me a cup of coffee. And it will figure out how to push the button on the Keurig and put the pod in and all that sort of thing. So buckle up, that's headed our way. Whoop. This is a list. I think this is in your handout. There's a lot longer list now. Someone mentioned Claude, using Claude for writing. As I mentioned, some of the training is different for these. Some of them just hand it off to OpenAI, which is ChatGPT behind the scenes. But some of them have their own AI, and certainly Gemini and Copilot are that way. Anyway, I encourage you to go play with these. All of these have a free version. You need to sign up, so they'll get your email, or if you have a Mac, you can use Hide My Email. But you need to sign up, and you'll get a certain amount of queries per time period. Generally, it's a day or a week or something like that. You'll get a certain number of queries that you can do. But you can play with all of them. Copilot is now embedded in Windows 10 and 11. And if you have Office 365, which now is $130 a year, I think, something like that, on your Windows screen, you'll see this little Copilot icon. And if you click on that, you will be able to use the Copilot chatbot. Also, you can use Copilot. It's directly embedded in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint and Outlook. So you can, if you open a Word document, for example, you can highlight a paragraph and say, rewrite this for me, or make this a little more technical in tone, or shorten it, or lengthen it. And the Copilot AI will do that for you right inside of Word. I've not had a lot of luck having AI create PowerPoint slides yet, but Copilot might do that better than ChatGPT. I'm still stuck with designing my own PowerPoint slides. It's the pain of designing PowerPoint slides. Yes, Michael, you raised your hand.
Claude just announced a couple of days ago that it's able to generate PowerPoint, Excel spreadsheets, and PDFs. And you could actually go into Claude on the free version and ask it to set up an example for you, which I demonstrated on Monday to a class.
Uh-huh. Oh my gosh. Well, we'll have to try that. I have not. ChatGPT will create PowerPoint. It'll PPTX files, but the PowerPoint slides aren't very good. So I'll have to look at that.
It also includes full instructions on how to export it or import it, either including HTML versions.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, thank you for letting us know that. If we get some time, we might fiddle with that. Well, good. So you're familiar with all this. We'll have to correspond when we get done here.
We've chatted before.
Oh, okay, great. I can't see your face, so all right. So let's do a little wrap up here. The reason this wrap up is a little different than most wrap ups is I like to throw in some Bobsky opinions here. But let's look at the takeaway. Humans being humans, there's going to be hype in marketing, but it is game changing. AI, it's here to stay. I compare it to the development of the internet or the invention of electricity, the discovery of electricity, whatever. It's a big deal. It's a very big deal. It's going to change the course of humankind, um, for better or for worse. The thing about AI compared to a human brain, somewhere I saw a comparison, and I don't remember what it is, but the human brain has, I don't know, trillions of neurons, something like that. The biggest AI data center only has millions or billions. So they haven't quite made AI that's human brain size yet, but give them some time. This whole notion of deepfake, and you've probably heard the term, of images, videos, and so on, gives scammers a whole new tool set. Man, I remember the old days when you got an email that said your iCloud account is full, and if you don't delete something or send us some money, we're going to delete all of your photos. And there was misspellings in it. It was misformatted. It was just awful. And you looked at it and said, this is clearly a scam. Well, not anymore because these guys use Chat GPT or Claude to develop the emails that they send out that now tell you you're running out of iCloud space, and they're much more convincing. Even worse is getting a phone call from your grandkids that say, I wasn't supposed to leave, but I went to Mexico, I'm in jail, and they need $3,000 for me to be out on bail. This is, this is Levon, your grandson, for sure. And you're listening to that and you're going, yeah, this is Levon, my grandson. Well, it's not. It's an audio AI fake based on a snippet of audio they may have got off of Levon's Facebook page. So, prepare for that. Develop a code word or a password or something with your grandkids or kids that you can say, is this really you? Give me the code word, something like that. The other thing is, videos nowadays, the AI can create videos that are extremely realistic. And I think I say that in here in a moment. Pretty soon we won't be able to believe anything. So does the good outweigh the bad? It's just like any other invention that came along. The world's going to end because of this. And then 30 years later, it's like, it's not quite so bad. We'll see. I like to say, and I can't take credit for this. This came out very early on. If you're working in any of these fields, you may not be replaced by AI. You may actually, but you will certainly be replaced by someone that uses AI. I like to think now. I don't think anymore. I really don't. I just ask Chat GPT, so I don't have to think. Even using in the Senior Center Tech Connect when we're doing drop-ins, somebody says, I can't figure out how to turn on autofill for my passwords to be saved. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know either. Let's ask Chat GPT. Because I used to have to remember that, but I don't have to anymore. We've talked about this more, AI for the wrong purposes, nefarious or otherwise. There's just humans being humans. They will find a way to do it and turn it into a money-making proposition. This may actually have changed. It depends on how old you are, right? We may not have to worry about it, but our kids and their kids will. That's certainly true, but we actually may have to start worrying about it. It's that imminent. So my opinions are, first of all, we won't be able to believe anything anymore, and I don't know how to fix that. You can ask AI if this is AI, and up to this point, it'll do a reasonably good job of discerning. There are AI websites that will help you discern whether something is a scam or not, and they're pretty accurate. I don't remember I don't know if North's on. North that remembers those. Something.io. And you can just do a screen snap or something and say, is this a scam? And it will look it up, actually. It'll say, yeah, this has been reported before or whatever. I think AI-based robots are going to be commonplace, maybe in 10 years, something like that. Yes, the government will get involved. That goes without saying. They already are involved. Um, there's discussion about humans not needing to work. That's because AI will take care of that. And of course, that brings the follow-on question is, well, how do I buy groceries if I'm not working? So we'll see how that works. If you take it out about 50 or 100 years, these carbon-based life units on this planet, they might be redundant. It may actually be the next stage of evolution for these carbon-based life units to become, AI hybrids or the Borg, as it were, something like that. This is some news, I think, news. Some of these are fairly new. Anyway, so that's that 1 minute before 11. So we did this in what, 59 minutes and 48 seconds.
Well, friends, that's a wrap. We hope you've enjoyed this video today. Hey, before you go, if you like this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to know when the latest SCTC video comes out, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. And if you have any ideas or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to leave a comment below. We'll see you next time.